I've been letting this sentence roll around in my head today, testing it to see if it's actually true, and I think it is. When scripture talks about growing up in your salvation, maturing, looking more like Christ, spiritual gifts are at the top of that list of a handful of things that have radically shifted and changed me. By spiritual gifts, I mean the use of my own spiritual gifting and the receiving of spiritual gifts by other believers around me. Spiritual gifting has left me radically changed, and I'm not convinced we're talking about it enough. I'm in a hotel, the lighting's weird, the audio's a little weird, will you just bear with me? We're in Georgia. Adeline has graduated from Impact. It's a year-long program that she's been in, so we're here celebrating that, and then we're headed to Universal Studios to celebrate her for the next week, doing all the things she loves. I'm not even sure this is going to be super practical or helpful. I just want to talk about it. And I want to talk about it because I think the best way to figure out your spiritual gift is by loving people in the way that feels natural and you're drawn to. And I think over the years, as I've done that and as I've seen people around me do just that, God, how can I love the people around me? As that's happening, this love, this going out, this doing, this being with people, these incredible God moments happen that can only be given by Him. And that's what I love about spiritual gifting. It is spirit-given, spirit-produced fruit that is given by God and that we get to give to those around us. And it's fully unique to us and how God has gifted and wired us. It is a beautiful thing to behold. It's had me thinking about spiritual gifts and how it has practically lived its way out in my life. And some of this I've been thinking about because of a situation that Jared and I were in this past couple months. Jared came to me in the middle of his workday and is like, I've got really bad news. He works at Genworth here in Lynchburg, Virginia. He loves his job. He loves the people he works with. And he's been there for about 8 years, I think. And he said, I'm not getting laid off, but about 200 of us are getting sold to another company, and I'll no longer be an employee of Genworth. It was so devastating to hear this because of how much he loves his job. We knew nothing about this new company. We knew nothing about what his pay would be. Nothing was guaranteed. What did this mean about our health insurance? Our minds were spinning a mile a minute. Now, one thing to note about Jared, I have seen and received from him this spiritual gift of faith that has been given by God. I've been the recipient of that so many times. Those first 24 hours, I'm like, so do you think everything's going to be okay? Because that's typically, I'm like, is everything going to be okay? Or should we worry? And he's just like, I don't know. He said, I looked up the pay, and what this company pays, my position, is $20,000 less than what I'm currently being paid. Okay. And they are not guaranteeing that they're going to match anything. I'm like trying not to hyperventilate. That's a big chunk of change. We were actually getting ready to go to bed, and I turned over to him, and I can still see the look on his face. And I said, what do you think they're going to offer you on Friday? His official offer was coming that Friday. And he said, well, this number, and he said the number, keeps coming in my head. And I just have this feeling, I just have this peace. I think it's going to be this number. This number that he said was not less than what he was making at Genworth. It was more than what he was making at Genworth by a decent amount. And I'm like, babe, listen, I don't even think that's reasonable. And he's like, I know. I know it's not reasonable. I understand it doesn't look possible on paper, But I just have this sense. That's all it is. And he said, and maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I guess we're just going to see. But he had this like really content look on his face. Like I can still see his face pressed against the pillow, kind of smiling at me and just saying, I don't know. I just feel peaceful. Now, wouldn't you know that that number that he had said is the exact number that was offered. Technically, he was offered $200 more than that number, which is mind-blowing to me. And even as he sat on his little pillow looking at me saying, I think it's this number, because of the track record of his spiritual gift of faith being used in our marriage, me being the beneficiary of this trust that he has of God and this faith that God has him. And I've seen it time and time and time again that when I shut off the light that night after he told me the number, chuckling to myself and thinking, God, watch him be right. Watch him have this faith that it's this number and watch him just be right. Jared stands in this confident faith and trust in God. After getting the number, he accepted the offer, and I just felt so much gratitude. And here's what spiritual gifts do. This is what they're intended to do. It does not make me think, wow, what a great man Jared is. Wow, what a great husband Jared is. Although he's a great man, he's a great husband. Spiritual gifts point us directly to God. It reminds us of who he is. It reminds us when we've experienced the use of spiritual gifts, it like centers and focuses our eyes right back on him, right back on God. It's refreshing. It's satisfying. It's wonderful. After the death of our daughter, Adora, this was probably day 2 or 3, and we were devastated and non-functioning. Jared and I and Adeline operated so differently in what we needed. And so for Jared, he had to get out of the house. So I don't remember what he and Adeline went to do that morning, but they were gone. And it was the first morning that I was actually fully alone. And I almost felt like an infant, like I felt helpless. How am I supposed to even function in the day? I woke up and I'm laying in bed, flat on my back, and I'm thinking, how am I supposed to fix breakfast? I know this may sound nonsensical. Why couldn't you just fix breakfast? It's like I did not have the ability to pick out something to eat, to cook it, and then to eat it. That felt like who do I think I am that I can fix something to eat and eat it? Like, I can't do that. I am sick. I am grief stricken. And I cannot function. We have nothing at the house. We had asked people not to bring food. We didn't want like a revolving door. And so there was nothing at our house. So I'm like, well, I could go to the store and I could get the fruit, but then I'd have to bring it home and I'd have to cut it. I cannot manage that. And so I'm just like, Lord, I just want some fruit, and who could bring it to me? I'm not going to ask somebody at 8 a.m. on this morning to come bring me some fruit. That's pathetic. So I got up. I headed into the kitchen. I opened the refrigerator door. Everything was still the same. There was nothing new in our fridge except for a bowl with cut fresh fruit in it on the very top shelf of our refrigerator. Someone, I actually to this day, I don't even know how it got there. Someone at some point in those 48 hours had not followed the rules and brought this fruit, and it felt like not simply a gift from that person. It felt like a direct gift from God, because that's what spiritual gifts do. They feel like an interaction, an exchange with the Holy One, right? The God of the universe comes in close. When spiritual gifts are in use and are in practice, this is what it is, and this is what it feels like. And I think this is why I can't get enough of it, because God, as awesome and amazing as he is, it's hard to imagine someone so far above us in practical terms, right? And this spiritual gifts is one of the things, along with creation, visibly being able to see it. Spiritual gifts is like that. It's like something we can wrap our hands around, something that is tangible and near and close and real and three-dimensional. Who doesn't want to spend their life using gifts given by God to give to other people and to receive from other people in this beautiful exchange that the church does? Who doesn't want to live like that? Who doesn't want to experience the living God? You know who doesn't want to experience that sometimes? Me. And I think why that is because when spiritual gifts are being used, meaning I'm giving them out, I've received them from God, and then I'm going to give them out to others, and when I'm receiving them from others, both of which can be very vulnerable states to be. When I am using my spiritual gifts, I am stepping out in faith to do something that could make me look very foolish. I could do something that may offend somebody. I could do something thinking it's from God and being like, oh, well, now I just look like a really big fool. When receiving gifts from those around me, I can feel weak. I can feel vulnerable because there's an opening up that has to happen to receive something. You've got to open yourself up. And that is a scary process. When we practice using spiritual gifts, it just becomes this wonderful exchange of what is holy and right and good. And it's how we mature and develop and grow up in our salvation. And so I have a question for you. When have you experienced a spiritual gift in a way that was life-changing for you, life-giving? It can be either you were receiving a gift from someone else as they used their gift, you received and saw God differently, or when you were using your own gift. What did that look like? What were you doing? I would love to have some stories in the comments of this is what this spiritual gift looked like in practice, in motion. Here's what it was. Here was the effect of it. Here's how I saw God. Would you please? It would fill me up so much. And I think it would benefit us as a community to hear some of these stories. Speaking of community, if you haven't heard already, that's a few little friends over on an app that's a standalone outside of YouTube where we get to actually connect face to face via video if you want to. Some of us connect via comments. It's been a lot of fun. There's a link below. If you click that, it's going to take you to Patreon, and there's a video that's going to explain a little bit more about it and how you can get involved if you wanna. I gotta go because it's late. I will see you next week.